What's up, Warriors? Welcome back to another episode of the Suburban Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Crissy Pyfer, back again this week with another amazing warrior here to share her story with us. So I'd like to introduce to you Alayna Bellquist. She is an author, speaker, and marine science expert with a 20-year career in sustainable fisheries management. With a graduate degree from Scripps Institution of Oceanography, Alayna has published her work in peer-reviewed journals and is a three-time recipient of the U.S. Certificate of Special Congressional Recognition. After her own transformative diagnosis and complete recovery from chronic Lyme disease, Alayna pivoted from her scientific career to help others navigate chronic illness. As the creator of the Resilient by Nature Workshop and the Lyme RX Forum, she focuses on emotional fitness and the profound connection between personal healing and the environment. Named a top 10 Lyme influencer and featured on podcasts including Tick Bootcamp, Alayna remains a fierce advocate for those seeking recovery through empowerment. She offers a rare and optimistic perspective on an illness often considered a life sentence. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about this conversation. I have a good feeling already.
Oh, well, great. Me too. I am very excited because I know we're going to talk about chronic illness in general, which I think is really important because there are so many women, especially my listeners, women in midlife, who have been dealing with what they have been told is a chronic illness for so long, and sort of sometimes at their wits' end trying to figure out how to treat a chronic illness. And then I'm excited that we're specifically going to talk about Lyme's disease because I think it's a very important illness to talk about. I think there's a lot of miseducation about it and obviously undereducation. It's also been in the news a lot lately, so we can talk about that and why that is. And, again, I'm just a fierce advocate for, women who are told they have chronic illness, understanding and educating themselves. I healed myself from a lifelong chronic disease that I was never told I was able to heal from. So, I believe in educating yourself and the power of quote unquote miracles and what you can do for yourself. So first, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and sort of why you become such an advocate for chronic illness and especially Lyme's disease? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, I mean, it's very parallel to what you just said, that I am a living, breathing, real human example of challenging that narrative that this is something that you're going to live with for the rest of your life, that you have to manage flares of symptoms, and your best option is to go into remission. And to me, remission was always like kind of this little thing in the back, like, but when something really stressful happens, like, we're back. And so I just early on in my illness decided I wasn't going to settle for that narrative. And so just like you, I can be an example of a different path that's real. So that's why I'm here. I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease in 2021 after a few years of being really sick. I was bitten by a tick riding my horse, which is my favorite thing in the world to do in Southern California. And, I just had all these crazy, very disturbing symptoms that sort of trickled into my life. And then I tested positive on the Western blot and the ELISA, which is really, really rare. And that was, that was about 5-6 years ago. So there's been a huge, change in my life since then. Today I am cured, I test negative, and I have no symptoms. So I'm here to share that story because there are a lot of people in this very scary place right now where they've been diagnosed with Lyme disease. And if you go online and do some searching on chronic Lyme disease, like, buckle up, you're going to be absolutely terrified that this is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. It was the most important and the best thing and the hardest thing that's ever happened to me. So I really want to be like a light for people who I was terrified is an understatement. I was distraught when I was diagnosed.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure.
We need more stories like this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask you a couple questions about your story. So you mentioned that you were bitten by a tick when, riding your horse. Were you aware of the tick bite at the time?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I found it on
you
my
were.
stomach. It was embedded for maybe 5 hours, 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you knew you were bitten by the tick. At that time, did your mind instantly go to Lyme disease, or was it
Yeah,
after?
yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely worst case scenario. I was like,
Yeah.
this is the worst thing that's ever happened. I kind of like took my little fragmented bits of understanding that I had gained from like TV, like I didn't know much about Lyme,
Yeah.
especially in Southern California. So yes, I went to worst case scenario in my head.
Okay. And then tell us how those symptoms that you experienced evolved for you and like that timeline. What did that look like?
There was about a 3-year period after the bite where they started to kind of slowly trickle into my life. In my book, that
Okay.
chapter is called Whispers because it was like things that I could easily attribute to stress, is what I did because I was such a workaholic and a perfectionist and overachiever type. So I just, vertigo, burning hands, stiff joints. I felt like I had the flu, air hunger. These things started to just show up in my life. And I was like, well, I guess I'm like approaching my 40s and I'm really stressed. So I just,
Yeah.
wrote it off as that. And then in 2021, I got the common flu, not COVID even, and it just never got better. It was the
Oh,
final
wow.
straw.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at what point did you get tested for Lyme?
I was tested 3 years after the bite. So
Okay. Okay.
I
So
did
when you were
my
having all
best
these
to,
symptoms.
exactly. I like did my best to ignore symptoms for 3 years. 3 years in, I was in bed for a month almost, and my husband was like, who are you? This is not the person I've known for all these years. You need to go to a doctor. And I just lucked out. I went to an urgent care and she was like, you are the limiest person I've ever seen. You need to get tested. And I
Wow.
tested positive. And so at least I knew what I was dealing with.
Yeah. So when you say you tested positive, you mentioned you tested positive for what was it exactly?
So Borrelia antibodies on the
Oh,
CDC
Borrelia.
approved test, the Western
Yeah.
blot and the ELISA. Very, 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 like something like almost 78% of positive cases read as false negatives. It's very rare to test positive on the
Oh,
Western blot.
okay. The Western blot.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so that showed indicative of active Lyme's disease.
Both, both. So
Okay.
I had Lyme is just like an umbrella term for a number of pathogens.
Okay.
Borrelia burgdorferi is a species. There are many different species of Borrelia, whatever.
Okay.
I had, I think, 14 infections. Some were active and some had more like historical properties.
Understood. Understood. Because I guess I want to understand, help my listeners understand
Yeah.
what is the difference between being diagnosed with like chronic Lyme's disease
Right.
versus Lyme's disease.
So chronic, I mean, again, I'm not a medical professional, so I'll do my best here. I'm a fish biologist. Um,
But I'm sure you know a lot
yeah,
having been
exactly.
dealing with this for so many years.
Well, chronic, I think, is anytime after 3 months. So,
Yes, of course.
right. So I had symptoms for years. And then even after I started an aggressive treatment regime with an antibiotic foundation, I got worse.
Okay.
So chronic, they also can look at IgG and IgM antibodies, and some are more indicative of something that's been around in your body for some time, and some indicates an active current infection. I had a mixture
Yeah.
of both. Lyme disease is also always, you learn quickly about co-infections. So these ticks carry all sorts of bacteria, viruses, parasites. So you'll get your standard Borrelia, whatever. And then most people, or I think the majority of Lyme people also get, there's Bartonella, Babesia, tick-borne relapsing fever, or Lichia, I think is another one. So they kind of come as like a package deal. And then a
Yeah.
lot of the times these co-infections cause more grief than the actual Lyme. I'm convinced that my Babesia infection, which is I think it's a parasite, was more was caused me more grief. It caused the air hunger, pretty severe anemia, body-wide pain. So when that cleared, I got a lot better, even though I still had some pretty strong Borrelia infections. So, it's a steep learning curve. Like I got diagnosed. I went to the doctor and they're like, "Okay, we need to test you for co-infections." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? This is our, like, what do you mean?" Like, I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah. Because no one really talks about that, right? No one talks
No.
about that there are all these different types of species
Yeah.
of bacteria and parasites that you could get underneath the Lyme umbrella,
Yes.
you know,
Yes, exactly.
which is,
And they all kind of, some respond to different treatments, and I mean, I have a very holistic approach in that they all respond to less stress, happier mindset, a regulated nervous system, time in nature,
yeah,
sauna, cold water, whatever it is. These things, you might take an antibiotic that is targeting one species of Borrelia, but calming your nervous system is beneficial to your immune function, which is beneficial to all of the pathogens that you're carrying.
right,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about symptoms in general. So you mentioned your symptoms, but
Yeah.
is that, are your symptoms like, joint pain,
Yeah.
the vertigo, burning hands? What other symptoms might people be experiencing?
Extraordinary fatigue. I didn't really have that, but
Okay.
like crippling fatigue. And that's why, pardon me, this is often misdiagnosed as chronic fatigue syndrome. People that just
Yeah.
cannot get out of bed, regardless of how much rest they have.
Okay.
Body-wide aches, flu-like sensations, stiff joints, stiff neck is a very classic one. Neuropathy, yeah, memory issues. I
Yeah.
had a sensation,
Neuropathy in like hands and feet.
tingling. I had all this weird tingling in my hands and my legs. Felt like bugs crawling up my skin. Air hunger is a really
What is air hunger
air
exactly?
hunger is when the pathogen feeds on your red blood cells, and so you
Okay.
are literally starving from air at the like cellular level.
Okay.
And so I went to the doctor and I was like, I feel like I can't get enough. I'm like constantly taking these deep breaths, but it's not satiating me. And, of course, they're like, here's an inhaler. And I'm like, no, like I have clear lungs. Like I don't have a symptom of asthma. It is
Understood.
deeper than that. And that it's really torturous. Like that is incredibly upsetting when you feel like
Yeah.
you can't get air in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
crazy stuff, and I mean, like, I mean it when I say it's the scariest, hardest thing I've ever endured.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I mean, I can imagine air hunger feeling very scary when you're trying to take deep breaths and not feeling satisfied by that. It's like an asthma attack almost.
an asthma attack that no matter, like, no inhaler's gonna touch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
crazy.
Interesting. Okay, so air hunger. Okay, I ask because if people are experiencing some symptoms, like sometimes you go to the doctor and you're like, oh, I'm chronically tired or my joints hurt. I mean, especially for women in midlife, like right, these symptoms are all, I mean, vertigo, burning hands, stiff joints, chronic fatigue, all symptoms of perimenopause. In general. So it could just be like, oh, yeah, your hormones, are out of whack. Let's get you some, menopausal hormone therapy and see how you do. But sometimes if those symptoms aren't relieved, asking your doctor to test for Lyme might be, because I mean, the bottom line is many people probably don't know when they were bit by a tick.
No,
Right? I mean, not everyone finds the tick on them, especially because some of the ticks are so microscopic.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And there are much more sensitive tests. So I'm not here like bashing the Western blot and the ELISA. They're highly specific. So if you test positive on those, with confidence you have that infection.
Yeah.
But there are many other labs that do much more sensitive tests. And I think the CDC has recently, last October, approved those as, so now, like IGeneX or Vibrant, those are labs that have much more sensitive tests, and they test for a range of the species, including the co-infections. So, if you go to a naturopathic doctor, like I went immediately to a naturopath as soon as I knew what I was dealing with, and
Okay.
she had me do the IGeneX test the first week I saw her.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that helps because you got to really
Yeah.
see
She was
exactly what you were dealing with.
Yeah. Oh, you have these co-infections and you have these different, yeah, much more detailed assessment of like what you're working with and what
Okay.
specific antibiotics you might want to try and things like that. So yeah, and you know, these are all generally out of pocket. Lyme is unfortunately like a fairly expensive illness. I mean, I don't like to freak people out. There were so many treatments I did that were free or virtually free to support these things. So, you know, but cost is a factor for, and you know, maybe you're not working. Like I
Yeah,
would,
yeah,
like there was no working.
yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
what was your experience like from your traditional medical doctor and like getting that initial diagnosis and then going to the naturopath? Did you just feel like you weren't getting as supported at a traditional
No,
Western
I don't
medicine?
have that negative experience. I didn't even have a primary care doctor at the time because I
Okay.
just thought I was like too busy and didn't need a
Didn't
doctor.
need one.
Didn't need
Yeah.
a doctor. And
Right.
so I just went to an urgent care. She was lovely.
Oh, right, right,
She
right.
was
Okay.
lovely
Yeah.
and she did say to me like I'm not very equipped in this. She had the like humbleness or I don't know what the word is to
Yeah,
be like,
yeah.
hey, this is what you have. This can be pretty serious. She gave me like, you know, 10 days of doxycycline and was like, didn't like explicitly tell me to find a specialist, but I knew I needed to find a specialist. And so I
Yeah.
did that immediately. And she happened to be in San Diego, which is where I'm located. So,
Yeah.
so fortunate. Someone who's been treating Lyme for 20 years. And for anyone listening who has a tick-borne infection or suspects they do, finding a Lyme literate doctor is like quite literally one of the most important things you can do. Someone who
Yeah.
knows what they're dealing with because it is complicated. And like you were saying, there's so much misinformation. So you need someone who has experience dealing with the Lyme diagnosis.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's great advice for almost anything that
Right?
you're experiencing, right? Just find the specialist who really, really knows exactly, how to treat whatever condition it is that you're specifically dealing with. So I think that's great advice. Tell me a little bit about what you think some of the misinformation is out there regarding Lyme's.
I mean, like, for number one, which is how I started this, is like, this does not necessarily have to be this worst case, dreadful life sentence. So if you go onto the internet and the forums and the support groups, like, it is going to be overwhelmingly bad news. And it's going to reinforce that this is really bad. This is going to turn your life upside down. And this is something that you hopefully will get into remission from.
Yeah.
And I think that's really harmful because what we take in becomes the stories in our head. And the stories in our head often become a reality.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of people that go on living life. I'm one of them. Many of them just go on living life. They're not online talking about it. So there aren't these stories being published and publicized. That's why I wrote this book because I want there to be an option for people to have this story be the narrative that runs in their head and then act from that place. So I think
Absolutely.
that's probably the biggest piece of misinformation. There's so much like mystery around Lyme. Like, is it like
Yeah.
government made? And like, is it like,
Well,
is it
let's talk about
real?
that because I mean the latest is because isn't there aren't they coming out with a vaccine or
They
something?
are, I believe, next year. I'm
Yeah.
super uninformed on the vaccine front. The
Yeah.
book, pardon me, the movie The Quiet Epidemic is a brilliant movie. It's very exhaustively researched. It's very well done, scientifically backed. It explains the history of Lyme from when it was discovered in Lyme, Connecticut. A bunch of kids were getting symptoms of arthritis,
Yeah.
and they were like diagnosing like 8-year-olds with arthritis. And
Yeah.
it was in the 70s. And it turns out it was, Lyme disease and the spread of Lyme from the East Coast and in its history, they have found Lyme and Lyme bacteria in like icemen, like frozen, it's been with us for many, 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 many years. So
Yeah.
it kind of covers all of that. Like, why is it so weird? Why is it such a weird illness in the medical community? Why do some
Yeah.
doctors have no understanding?
Yeah.
Like zero understanding, and some just outright deny its existence to be, they're like, no, 10 days of doxycycline will clear this, which is like extremely upsetting to tell a person when they're like, I'm so sick and I took your
Yeah.
10 days of doxy, and like, so it's the misinformation is rampant, but like thank goodness it's being talked about more. Like it's in the news now. The vaccine is coming out, so that's in the news quite a bit.
Yeah.
Tick populations are spreading. Winters are significantly warmer. So there's a lot of things happening, like a lot of variables.
Yeah. And the whole like government controversy, or like is it
Yeah.
is it man-made because now they're coming out with a vaccine. So now, I mean, they're saying that, I mean, it is true. They might be talking more about it because now there is a vaccine. So, I mean, listen, the
Agreed.
pharmaceutical companies do pay for promotion. They
Okay.
pay for advertising, right? So like no one's going to talk about Lyme's disease and awareness of Lyme's if there's no cure, because there's,
Right.
or like
Okay.
the doxycycline is a generic antibiotic that costs pennies. They're not going to promote, oh, take doxycycline for Lyme's disease. So obviously the government and the pharmaceutical companies will be promoting a vaccine now, but whether or not the ticks are getting, there's more and more ticks. They're more powerful. They're spreading more bacteria, more parasites. Who knows, right? Who knows about that? Like, it makes sense. Like, if the winters are warmer and we're not killing off the population, and I live on the East Coast. I'm in Eastern Pennsylvania. So, like, we've deer and ticks everywhere, everywhere you go. So, it makes sense that, we're seeing it more and more.
I also think a piece that I don't hear people speak about, and to me it's so obvious that we are more vulnerable than we've ever been. People are more
Yeah.
depleted, more
Yeah.
stressed out, more
Exactly.
vulnerable. So we're all like, this is where my understanding as a biologist comes into play, that we all arrive on this earth with like a level of inherent resilience. Every
Yep.
living thing is, including Earth. And that's undeniable. If you look at rates of illness, mental and physical, we are more burned out and stressed out and drained and sick and chronically sick than we've ever been.
Yeah.
So when we encounter these pathogens, we are less capable of fighting them off. And that's why, like, this isn't black and white. Like, my husband's been bitten lots of times by ticks. He has antibodies, he's been tested, and he has never had a symptom. Never had a symptom. And like,
Yeah.
that's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And so it's not like you're bitten by a Lyme infected tick, you're going to get sick.
Yeah.
And this is so nuanced, and I am like grossly simplifying this, understandably, but
Yeah.
to enhance our own ability to, fight off these things, to like protect and guard our immune systems is so important. Is so
Yeah.
important. And people aren't really talking about that. Like, we are so stressed out and depleted. We are
Yeah.
so stressed out and depleted and disconnected from nature beyond.
Yeah.
This has huge biological consequences.
Yeah.
And
No,
that's really
listen.
empowering. To like, what an empowering position to be in, because then it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm actually in charge of this. You're not giving all of your power to the ticks that are,
Yeah.
their populations are growing. We have less top level predators that are controlling the rodents that carry the ticks. Like, you can think about it from many, many different ways. But
Yeah.
like, if I just think about, like, that's how I started to think about it. Okay, well, I can't control tick populations, duh. But I can make sure I'm more strong. Like, I can enhance my immune function doing these things. That'll also protect me from all sorts of other things.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say, right? Like when you really start to focus on your own body and your own microbiome and your own immune function and what you can do for it, you realize, it's not obviously it's not just ticks and it's not just Lyme, and all the other bacteria and parasites and everything that they're carrying. It's everything. It's flu, it's COVID, it's strep, it's, the bacterias in the foods that we eat, and like whether or not they're going to make us sick or we're just going to be able to pass it right through and not respond to it because, it is truly, and I think when you have healed yourself from a chronic illness, like you have and like I have, you understand that balancing act so much better than before. Like I understand my body at the cellular level so much better than I ever did. And I was an educated nurse and I was in pharmaceuticals and I understood biology and how, pharmacokinetics and how drugs worked in the body and thought I understood it all. But when you really go down to the simplest nature, to your point of how we were born with a certain amount of resilience and how we are actually made, if you look at what we're supposed to be putting in our bodies and what we're supposed to be around and how we're supposed to sleep and eat and function and move our bodies and go to bed and block out the light and not look at screens and all of the things, and what, obviously nutrition, it's amazing how different the makeup of our bodies can be and how differently we can feel.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think it's empowering, but I do think it's hard for a lot of people to wrap their brains around that and then make those significant changes, because it's a lot. It's a lot of change that needs to happen from our stressed out, processed food, on the go, screen filled lifestyles.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't try and do it all at once.
No.
I've been there. Like, I was like, I'll do it all. Then you'll just stress yourself out. So
exactly.
Pick one thing. Pick one thing.
Yep. And every single one of those things, every little lever that you pull makes such a big difference. So you don't need to do it all at once. I think taking the time to really focus on one little thing at a time, taking those baby steps. People don't get sick in 10 days, most of the time when it's a chronic illness. And then, it takes time. Over time, you're getting sicker and sicker. And to heal yourself, it takes time.
Exactly. I didn't get sick just because I was bitten by a tick that day. It was the decades leading up to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, like, okay, this is really an inside job in many ways.
Yeah. And it took all that time for the symptoms to sort of present themselves to you. Yes. Like you said, like it was over the course of 3 years. Because if you had got bitten by the tick, you said in your mind you were aware of Lyme's disease. So if you automatically started feeling symptoms, you would have gone to the doctor right away. Right?
No. I was not, I didn't have the time for that. I was just like so like
too busy.
I'm on a mission. Like there is no time. It was more of like a denial. Like, no, I'm not going to go to the doctor and start talking about vertigo because I don't have the time to go down that rabbit hole. So I'm just going to, and then it's the quote, like, listen to the whispers before they become screams. And I just was like, no time for addressing the vertigo, no time for addressing random body aches, no time for addressing joint pain. Like, there's no time for this. I have too much to achieve, too much to accomplish, because how much I achieve and how much I accomplish determines my worth as a human. It's like you start going deeper and deeper and deeper. Like, why on earth are you not going to the doctor? Because your brain feels like it's vibrating.
Yeah. Oh, God, it's terrible.
Right?
It's terrible. Yeah.
It's such a common woman thing. I feel like I'm so not alone in this. Like, how many women?
Oh, not at all. Of course. Oh my God. We just keep suffering and suffering until we just hope magically one day we'll wake up and we'll feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like all the wheels fall off and you're like, oh, like now I have to seek medical care.
Yes. Yes. So tell us why you believe that you can be healed. I mean, obviously because you were healed, but and what are the levers that you had to pull? How can you heal from chronic Lyme disease?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it because I've lived it. So that's my personal lived experience, is that I've come out from this. I'm stronger, I'm happier, I'm more calm, and all of the things. So I'm actually an improved version of the person I was. I didn't just go back to the person I was the day before I got sick. So, again, my lived experience, that I know that this is possible because I have done it and I've benefited from it because of the way I chose to respond. So I wasn't like apathetic and like, oh, well, this is my destiny. Like quite the opposite. So I took a really like almost A-type approach to this and it worked. So I know it to be true. And in my years of now talking about Lyme disease, I've met other people who have done the same. So I have like, concrete experience and I've met other people and, so it's like anecdotal and there's a lot of accounts online of people who have come back from like MS or fibromyalgia or whatever, you might not find it in the literature, in the medical journals, but if you look just outside of there, you'll find a lot of people who have like, we're on this podcast together.
Yeah.
So, I just really lean into those. In short, the way that I did that was by, which I feel like this is the same, probably similar, like you speak to people all the time who have done, like it's miraculous healing, right?
Right.
And I mean, have you ever met someone who healed miraculously who like just focused on one thing? Like I have not. So for me, it was Western medicine, a big, strong antibiotic base, which is a whole other episode in itself. Alternative treatments, Chinese medicine, contrast therapy, colonics, parasite cleansing, like you name it, I was all into it. Okay. A deep and meaningful connection to nature, a truly like profound daily connection to the natural world, and then mental and emotional work. Those are the four things, all completely necessary. There was no getting out of this if I had just done 2, 3, 1. All four needed to happen for me to get to where I am. So I've like bundled it up as the SOAR method. Pardon me, no, that's not the SOAR method. As the 4 spheres of recovery, which if you go to like my website, I have like an infographic and all that stuff like that. So that's the 4 spheres of recovery. It's a little Venn diagram with recovery in the middle. Because I'm asked all the time, like, how'd you do it? And you kind of have to like whittle it down to its most rudimentary. Those 4 things.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's really important for people to know, because a lot of times, people do think, oh, okay, well, I'll just take an antibiotic and then I'll be better. And that's not.
It's demanding much more of you than that, because you probably didn't get into this situation just from like it's probably more nuanced and more complicated than just the bite.
Yeah.
It's like, so if it's a complicated problem, it's probably going to take a bigger solution. Like what you said, I always say Lyme takes time. Lyme takes time. It took me a lot of decades to get into this mess, and it took time to get out of it. Lyme will demand that you learn patience. Will demand it. And I like in my career in marine science, I spent a lot of years looking at like devastated ecosystems, stocks of fish, things like that. How do we get them back from devastation? And it's like create the conditions that allow healing to naturally happen, remove external pressure and stressors like overfishing, pollution, warming oceans, and then allow for time. Yeah. And so I just was like, oh, I've done this a lot in my career. Let's just do the same thing to my body, because my body is nature. And that's basically the basis of my book.
All right, now tell us a little bit about your book.
It's called Resilient by Nature, and I wrote it when I was working with a coach. Her name is Mia Magic. She is phenomenal. She's like, I just love this woman so much. When I started doing like therapy and was like, oh, I should probably get into like the inner work and, calm this old nervous system down and address some of these things. I did a lot of therapy, and I also kind of started to branch out and look at like coaching and spiritual work, which I was like very afraid of and thought was super cringy. And I met Mia, and she says she's a witch. She's deeply connected to nature. We bonded very quickly, and she said to me, girl, if you want to get out of this, you have to start sharing your feelings, because I was like a vault. I didn't talk about my feelings and things that happened to me. And I was like, oh, Lord, that's like the worst thing you could say to me. So
you're like, that is the last thing I want to do.
Yeah, which is why she knew it was the medicine. Yeah. The cave, what is it? The cave you fear to enter is where like the solution lies. Yeah. I was like, fine, I'll write a book, because then it was like safe on a Word document on my computer. Yeah. And so I wrote the nitty gritty, grueling story of how I went from bedridden for, a year, crawled my way to where I am today. And then woven throughout the whole book is just this beautiful relationship to nature. I'm from Vancouver Island in Canada, so it's based in Victoria, BC, and Southern California. So there's just like really like just so much nature woven through it, which is really unique in a book about Lyme, because most people
Yeah.
who are stricken with Lyme
Don't want to go out in nature.
that are like middle finger, I hate nature, I hate
Yes,
ticks.
yes.
So it's like this is the book is there's trees, literal trees all over the
Yeah.
front.
Right.
So it's really unique, and you will leave like when you read this book, unlike other Lyme books I've read that left me more afraid, this book will leave you like, oh, like, okay, like feeling more capable, feeling more convicted in your ability to recover. Like, I want people to read that book and be like, I got this. I can do this.
Yeah.
Not like, holy shit, this is terrible.
Yeah.
There's enough.
Yeah. Right. Or feel like I love, your connection with nature and because obviously, being a marine biologist and, having all of this connection to animals and marine life and nature. But because I do think, if you have had an illness caused by nature, I mean, obviously all disease is caused by nature,
Partly.
but partly, yeah, right. I mean, but like specifically, it's from a tick, and you think like, oh, I don't want to go out and hike, and I don't want to go out and be in grass and trees, and anymore. So to tie this in, so in your healing back into nature,
Yeah.
I think is so important, and a great story to hear because nature is healing.
We are nature, and this fractured relationship, this non-existent relationship that modern society has with the natural world, in my opinion, is like the root of the majority of our suffering. And it is the thing that is going to determine whether we stick around for a long time. We rely on this planet. It's like so ridiculously basic, yet it seems like we're like the only species that decided we would like separate ourselves and just be fine. But like we need everything that this earth, and only this earth, offers everything we need to survive. And so disconnecting even further is a direct line to suffering. And again, like I'm not here telling people to be like don't go be reckless. Like I still do tick checks. I use non-toxic bug spray. I'm not out there like in Pennsylvania like rolling around in the leaves. Like this is like use your wits. But a connection to nature can be as simple as going into your yard before you look at your phone in the morning. Like stepping outside and developing a relationship with an olive tree. That's all we had in our old yard. I live in SoCal. I had an olive tree. And I was like besties with that olive tree.
Aww.
And then the red-tailed hawks that would, so this isn't like go and hike Yellowstone.
Right.
Love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's just because I think about this all the time, just from the difference between my childhood and my kids' childhood. Just how much more I was outside. I mean, I lived outside growing up. I mean, we had nothing else to do. I mean, maybe like watch a couple sitcoms at night, but like we had nothing else to do, and then even my kids who are now like, between 18 and 25, but like they had so much more indoor activities. And I can't even imagine having kids now. Like, forget it. Like, there's so much to do inside, but just to get outside and be outside in nature. And, I don't know. I feel like now, even in these wonderful neighborhoods, you can't even just like send your kid to play outside. You're afraid they're going to get snatched. Like, that's the world that we live in.
There's a book called Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv, Louv. It is a phenomenal book about the impact not being in nature is having on our youth.
Yeah.
And this is all data driven. This is all backed by literature.
Yeah.
It's a little terrifying, to be honest.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
can imagine.
so beautiful, though. He's a beautiful writer, and I mean, what I took from it is like, it would be really nice if kids had like rolling landscapes to be a part of. That's what I hope for future generations.
Yeah.
But kids, honestly, like give them a scrap of so if you have like a football field, And if kids are left to their own devices, they're not going to be on the turf. They want to be on the periphery, on that scrubby, scrappy little like ditch where there's
Yeah.
like wild, bit like
Grass,
that's
flowers.
what
Yeah.
they gravitate towards. And
Yeah.
so again, like it doesn't have to be this huge, like, because if people feel overwhelmed, they're not going to do it. Oh, you're
Yeah.
telling me I need to move to a 50-acre ranch and
Right.
become like
Right.
a,
Right.
a farmer? Like I can't
No.
plant.
No.
I have, we live in the middle of a major city of millions of people. And on my front stoop, I've planted all these planter boxes of milkweed, which is what the monarch butterflies need
Yeah.
to eat. And I have maybe 6 milkweed plants, and now I have all these monarch butterflies showing up
Yeah. It's beautiful.
from 6 milkweed plants,
Yeah.
you know?
So great. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. Tell my listeners where they can find you. Tell
I'm
us about
really
your
active on
website.
Instagram, so at
Okay.
Alayna Bellquist. And I
Awesome.
respond to all the messages myself. It's just me. I'm very active. I post a lot of like when people are like, how'd you do it? I'm like, first just start like just devour my Instagram content. You'll start to get a feel for my approach. I have a website, alaynabellquist.com. I have a free 43-page guide. It's beautiful and it's a very like high level, but also deep dive in some areas. How did you do it? And then if you really want to get into the like the nitty gritty, like the book is being released on September 15th, but you can pre-order it now.
Awesome.
So
Oh, great.
yeah, I can go onto like Barnes and Noble, Amazon, all the stuff.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Well, congratulations on the book. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's cool. It's a bit surreal. It's really
I
cool.
bet. I bet. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for sharing your story with us. I really, I think Lyme is a conversation that needs to be had. And I think it's something that should always sort of be in the back of our head because I don't think all practitioners will think to test for it, especially when they think of joint pain or vertigo or some of these other symptoms, because it does present like many other conditions that we can have in midlife. So I want to thank you for bringing us the conversation today, making us aware of it. And, hopefully if one person hears it and they ask for the test, you never know. You never know where it can lead. So thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much. And yes, I mean it when I say this, reach out. If people have questions or they want to talk to someone, please reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for being here and listening to the Suburban Warrior podcast again this week. And as a reminder, check out suburbanwarriorpodcast.com. That is where you can find sign up for our weekly newsletter, and you can also download the From Pause to Power roadmap for free. And again, just let us know what you think of the podcast. We would love to hear from you. Drop us a review, follow me on Instagram at Suburban Warrior, and we'll be back next week with another amazing Suburban Warrior here to share her story with you. Until then, have a great week, everybody.